Hey guys, this is Bharadwaj with FoneArena.com and this is the Oppo N1 that we recently unboxed. One of the highlights of this phone is of course its camera. And it's not just another camera, it is actually a rotating swivel camera that can act as the front facing camera as well as the rear facing camera, which is pretty cool. So you can actually take 13 megapixel selfies with this camera, and you can notice that it can turn even further than 180 degrees. So pretty nice engineering by Oppo, because apparently they have tested it 1,000 times, making sure that this piece stays very well even after 1,000 rotations. So it is effortless changing the view from the back to the front. So pretty much a quality piece of material and build quality here, which we have come to expect from this manufacturer. So pretty great stuff, but let's talk about the actual specifications of the camera. This is a 13 megapixel unit and is a stacked CMOS sensor from Sony, which is called the XMOR RS, that we've been seeing in many popular phones such as Samsung Galaxy S4 and even the same in the Oppo Find 5. But the difference here is that Oppo has gone for a 6-element lens in this camera, which means that you'll be seeing more clarity and more quality. And then there is the aperture, which is f2.0 in this lens, which will produce beautiful bokehs thanks to the shallow depth of field and of course better low light performance. We also have dual LED flashes here, which can also act as a video light and a flashlight. And then there's the secondary microphone, which will let you record stereo audio in video recordings. Yes, it can record 1080p Full HD videos, but how about the quality of the stills and the videos? That's what exactly we are going to see. And of course, first a look at the UI. So this UI is very similar to what you had in the Oppo Find 5, but there are a lot of neat touches in terms of cleaning up the UI. So you already have the touch to focus and then shoot option. You can directly shoot a picture or record a video with these two buttons, and then you have the gallery thumbnail. So this is the most important. This is the picture modes. Currently it is selected in the normal mode. You can change to HDR, panorama, beautify and slow shutter. We'll talk about all of these after taking a look at the UI. And then you have this button, which will show you the camera modes like what you see on point and shoot cameras. Pretty normal stuff. And then you have the flash toggles and the in-depth settings for all the shutter, the location and the normal settings. For example, you can change the resolution here, and you can change the video mode too, and location and whatnot. But here we note that there are no extra settings, which means that you cannot control the ISO, you cannot control the exposure, you cannot control any part of the usual stuff that you can do. For example, even white balance is not really a mode that we can use to change it. So we do have smart scene, which automatically takes, selects based on the conditions, but otherwise we don't have any manual controls, which is kind of a letdown because this is a camera focused device. And another letdown is that we don't have any shutter button, but of course clicking the volume button takes a photo, which is okay, but doesn't beat a two-step shutter button, especially on a camera centric device. So that's about it for the UI. Let's take a look at the camera modes now. We have normal, HDR, panorama, beautify and slow shutter. So normal is self-explanatory. It's normal. HDR is high dynamic range, which takes a multiple exposure shot and combines them for a beautiful tone mapped saturated image. So this is something that Oppo does very well since the Find 5. The Find 5 had a great HDR mode, and it's even better on the Oppo N1. So pretty good that they have stuck to the HDR mode of before. And then we also have the panorama, which is pretty normal. Touch the camera button and move in one direction. So that's pretty much it. And then we have beautify. Beautify is actually a face beautification algorithm that will smoothen the skin tones and remove blemishes and other things. So pretty normal of Chinese phones to have that. But this is the best thing. We have long exposure on the Oppo N1, Oppo N1 is the only other camera that we know otherwise from the Lumias that can take long exposure shots from the default camera. But it even takes it further than the Lumia devices by having the double shutter speed. For example, you can take 8 seconds of shutter speed on the Oppo N1. So long exposure photos are going to be really good on this. But the only problem is you can't control the aspects of exposure compensation or even reduce the aperture, because this is a fixed aperture f2.0 mode, and it'll obviously have a lot of exposure in case you're shooting light trails or anything. But shooting at the sky should be pretty good, much better than what we have with shooting long trails of vehicles. So that said, let's talk about the camera performance now. We shot several photos in daylight, low light, macro conditions, and even long exposure shots. So let's see one by one. First up, normal conditions, normal daylight conditions. Let's take a look at them. All these photos were shot in the normal mode. So you might have to put up with some inconsistencies in terms of exposure. So let's take a look. As you can see from the shots, if you go even at 100%, some of the shots are really clear with very less noise. That's pretty nice for Oppo's standards, because we have seen a lot of phones struggle with even daylight conditions, but this one is pretty good. For example, this shot that we took in normal mode in daylight, you can zoom in to 100% and see that right from sharpening and everything, it's extremely smooth. It's nicely done, and the details are well intact with very natural colors, and no signs of any post-processing here. Pretty nice clear image with very soft post-processing by the Oppo N1's ISPs. So one more thing that Oppo claims to have changed is the algorithms, which we are seeing here. They are much better than the Find Fi. So well done to Oppo that they have pulled this off. This is probably one of the best 13 megapixel images we have seen. This is right in line with the Samsung Galaxy S4 and the LG G2, which produce similar images, and we would be pitting it against both these devices, but still we find the Oppo N1 to have a better camera than the both. But then we also shot HDR images. So HDR, as I already said, is one of the strengths of Oppo N1's software. So they do it pretty well, and right now what you're seeing is a HDR image. We took several other images, and you can see side by side the normal and the HDR version, which looks pretty contrasting. They are really nice, and the HDR mode is well done, because no one wants to go through separate HDR software to take really nice looking high dynamic range images. So anyway, take a look at it. So as you can see from those images, the HDR photos have come out really well, and they have great saturation, great colors. Seems unreal, but they are apparently very balanced from what we can take a look at. So this is one HDR mode that doesn't make the samples, but I'll show it to you here. This is a very well saturated and very nicely dynamically ranged image, because it was completely shadowed in this part, but you can see that Oppo has managed to take all the details that are pertaining to that area, because it was very dull even in real, but the HDR mode takes it really well and balances the colors and the exposure to pretty much perfection. So normal as well as HDR photos are pretty much great on the Oppo N1. This is a very good 13 megapixel camera. This was not as good in the previous firmwares, so they released the latest firmware. Let's take a look at the settings right now. The firmwares are here. Just a sec. As you can see, this is the latest firmware, and that's the build number right there. So N1, 12, 13, 1, 11, 16. So that's the build number of our firmware, which takes pretty good photos. So in case you have an N1 and doesn't take as good photos as this, then you definitely need to upgrade the firmware. So otherwise, we have seen other HDR photos too. They are pretty good. We very much like the HDR mode on the Oppo's N1. This is one photo, another photo that we really like. Now let's move on to macro shots. The macro is easy mode on most of the cameras. You can see that most of the cameras do pretty well. They have all the details. But one other factor we take a look at is the bokeh. Now the Oppo N1 has a f2.0 aperture, so it creates a magnificent bokeh in our opinion. We have several samples here that you can see, but this camera just blows everything else off with its bokeh because it's so beautiful and smooth, and has even a lot of the small balls of light that you usually associate with bokeh images. For example, you can see this Angry Birds photo. It's nicely focused on the bird, but in the behind you can see how smooth the bokeh is, how the balls of light appear. This is something great with the Oppo N1. We really love it. We also have shot a few floral shots and other macro shots. You can take a look at those samples right now. So as you can see from the samples, these samples have excellent detail and excellent rendition of color, as well as bokeh, beautiful bokeh right there. So pretty nicely detailed and well done from Oppo. This is some excellent performance in macro we haven't seen on other devices. The f2.0 aperture really helps. Probably the one phone that comes really close to the Oppo N1 might be the HTC One, which takes great low light pictures as well as macro pictures too. So now let's move on to low light. Low light is obviously a challenge for any camera that takes pictures in most conditions. So low light is pretty much a challenge. So we put the Oppo N1 to test and shot several images in low light conditions. See how it has turned out. So as you can see, pretty nicely done by the N1, because the variance in lighting in low light is very challenging, and this is where the HDR mode comes to play. As you can see, this photo is a really nice photo that I took recently at a concert. This is a hall with uneven lighting, and you can see the N1 has captured it perfectly, beautifully in fact. And this is also another aspect of low light. The highlights are usually overblown in other phones, but the Oppo N1 has managed it really well. You can see the lights are very nicely balanced, and the detail is excellent too. Yes, of course you see some noise because this is low light. You obviously see some noise, but the post-processing is very less. The noise reduction, everything has been done perfectly well. Even this is another photo that we took in low light. You can see some noise creeping up here. Still really damn good. This is another photo that we took. Yes, you see some noise, but again, this is very low light. This is not how it looks in real. This is not as bright as it looks. So pretty great performance in low light by the Oppo N1. We took this initially in the HDR mode, which overblowed the highlights, but then we took it in the normal mode, which took the photo perfectly. In fact, we really loved the output of the Oppo N1 in low light. So pretty much a great camera in low light as well as daylight. We really love that the algorithms have been taken up a notch. We have taken several photos in several conditions and all have turned out pretty much what we wanted. So great photos in almost all the conditions, low light, macro, and even daylight. But then we also have the video mode. The video mode is unfortunately disappointing, pretty much like the Find 5. The videos have a lot of more effects in HDR modes. So let's quickly go through the video modes first because there is a lot. You have 480p, 720p, 1080p, slow motion, and HDR. Slow motion is 480p, 120 fps, 1/4 to 30 fps, and then we have HDR video and then normal 1080p video. All these video modes are not as good as we have seen with other cameras. So it's pretty much the Find 5 again. The video mode almost sucks because it doesn't register all the details perfectly well. It is very soft and mushy. It is underexposed in the normal mode, and even in the HDR mode it has a lot of more effects and pretty much ruins the video. You can take a look at the normal and the HDR video samples right now and you'll see what we are talking about. Take a look at them. So as you saw from the video samples, the audio is surprisingly good. It is stereo audio and it is very good, but the video quality is just abysmal because we expected a lot more after the Find 5. The Find 5 video performance was terrible and the Oppo N1 is very similar and in very close quarters to the Find 5's camera performance. So yeah, as you can see, the stills is perfect, almost perfect for a 13 megapixel camera. It is not in the levels of the Lumia 1020 or any other camera phone that has higher megapixels. For example, even the Sony Xperia Z1 might be better than this, but for a 13 megapixel camera, it has stunning clarity and quality. We can vouch for the Oppo N1's camera, by the way, but only for the stills because the video mode pretty much sucks and is exactly the same as the Find 5, which we find very disappointing. So we hope Oppo fixes the video mode and keeps the N1's camera stills capability as is because it's excellent. So we also wish that they gave more controls, for example ISO and exposure, because that will definitely help for long exposure shots. And yeah, before we forget, we took a couple of long exposure shots. This is completely impossible without a tripod, so you can just take a look at a couple of them here. It's just a random attempt just to prove that it can take a long exposure shots. Take a look at them right now. And that brings us to the conclusion of the Oppo N1's camera review. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. We hope it was informative enough for you. So do hit the like button if you like this video and do hit the subscribe button for more videos like these. Thanks for watching again and let us know what you think in the comment section below.